recording and we are live on YouTube, everybody. Here we go. Thank you so much for your patience, everybody. Aloha and thank you for joining us. My name is Jane Clement. I am the president of Community Forums, but full disclosure though, before we begin, I do now work for Mayor Mitch Roth as his executive assistant, but tonight I am wearing my Community Forums hat. So Community Forums is an all-volunteer nonprofit organization. We plan, organize, and present these monthly forums on various topics and issues important to our community. Our mission is to bring educational resources to the residents of West Hawaii so they can better participate in public policy issues that affect their lives and their communities. And like most organizations, we have had to suspend our events most of last year due to COVID, but we're very happy to be back. And it has been a Community Forum's yearly tradition to invite the mayor and department heads to present the county's budget for the upcoming fiscal year. Deanna is a veteran already. She's been coming to these forums for many years now. And this is also to inform the community of the challenges of balancing this budget and to talk about the county's goals and priorities specific to West Hawaii. So on behalf of our board members, Pete Huffman, Mike Matsukawa, Isaiah Hires, Scott Ordway, Candy Ellsworth, and Michael Bell, I want to welcome you all to this forum. Tonight's moderator is the president of Hawaii Leeward Planning Conference and also the executive director and COO of Hawaii Island Economic Development Board. We are very happy that she agreed to moderate for us tonight. Please welcome Ms. Jackie Hoover.
Aloha and good evening, everyone. Welcome Mayor Roth, Finance Director Deanna Sacco, and the other directors who have joined us this evening. Ramsey Mansour, Environmental Management, Susan Coombs, Housing, Doug Adams, Research and Development, Ikaika Rodenhurst, Department of Public Works, Bobby Command, Deputy Managing Director, Zendo Kern, Director of Planning, Michelle Hirashi of Department of Parks and Recreation, and her boss, Maurice Mansour, the Director of Parks and Recreation. Welcome, everyone. Folks, we're going to have a presentation by Mayor Roth and Deanna Sacco. Then we'll have some questions and answers. If any of the viewers have any questions you would like to ask, please put them into your chat box in Zoom, and we'll be happy to include those as we move forward with the program. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Mayor Roth and Deanna Sacco, who will be giving us a general overview of the county budget.
Well, thank you, Jackie, and thank you everybody for tuning in. I gotta say, first of all, it's Maurice Messina, although he could be Ramsey's son. I'm not really sure. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Maurice, I apologize.
I think he'd be pretty proud to be Ramsey's son. Anyhow, talking about the budget, as you know, we have some big challenges ahead of us. But we have great people in our finance department led by Deanna Sacco, who is going to be really taking most of the questions and answering, what we're doing with the budget. But, in general, we had a bare bones budget starting off this year. We're still not sure what's going to happen with the state. We were given some money from the new president of the new CARES Act. But that still may not cover everything. We're looking at, some of the things we're doing with the airport and some of the testing stuff. And we're getting news, just as we sit here today, how much those things are going to cost. And there's a lot of surprises. The other surprises that we weren't really looking forward to is what's happening at the legislature, with the legislature trying to balance the state budget. And unfortunately, there's been a lot of bills that have gone through the legislature. They're still going through the legislature that really take monies away from the counties. Now, as you know, the state is getting $1.6 billion, and we're hoping for some changes on some of their plans on what they were doing. but we're still waiting to find out what's going to happen at the legislature. So it's kind of frustrating to sit here and tell you, here's our budget, but we don't know what is going to be taken away from us. Some of the things that we've seen, just for example, our career criminal program for the prosecutor's office, it is a state program. It is a state mandate to have that program, and they're cutting funds from the prosecutor's office, which is something that we need to look at. The lifeguards at Hapuna and Kua Bay, that is, those are state beach parks, and we were getting funds to take care of those, and they're cutting those funds, or presumably cutting those funds. We're hoping that the governor and the legislature starts to put in some of those funds back now that they're getting some funds. But as we sit here today, and Deanna can answer a little bit more of this, we just don't know what we don't know. And that's kind of a real frustrating thing to think about as we're going into our budget next month, and we still have another month with the legislature. So it is kind of fluid. We do not expect any TAT funding, and Deanna's going to talk about that. So that's about $19 million that we're usually dealing with. So we had to do some things to balance that out. And Deanna's got a whole presentation, so I'm going to let her give the presentation. But I can tell you that we do have Kona in mind moving forward, as we have the rest of the island in mind. Not this, it is a big island, but it's one island, and we need to be taking care of all sides of the island. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Deanna, and I think she has a presentation, and I'll sit back and put myself on mute. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. We did practice screen sharing earlier, so I think this is going to work. Let me just get it going here. So we have worked on and submitted to County Council our fiscal year 21-22 budget. And what we're talking about tonight is the March 1st version of the budget. And our budget, like every year, definitely includes things for police, fire, highways and streets, parks and community facilities, solid waste, sewer, transit, short-term vacation rental enforcement, housing and community development. So, those are just a few of the departments and functions that the county provides. The bulk of our funding definitely goes to police and fire. Those are two of the larger sections of our pie here, which is really public safety. And then a large portion of this fringe benefit chunk here in purple also goes to police and fire, as we pay the fringe benefits for them. So then all of the other departments you can kind of see along the way there, and everybody else is a lot smaller, but still all very important. So our total budget, proposed budget for the coming year is at $590,800,000. So some of the major changes from fiscal year 21 to 22 are the additional collective bargaining unit increases and fringe benefits. So really all of the bargaining unit contracts expire on June 30th of this year, but we are expecting some health benefit increases for the coming year. So that's that change there. The other big change in the budget is what the voters approved as a charter amendment to transfer 1% of the disaster, 1% of real property taxes to the disaster and emergency fund. So that's an additional 3.2 million. So roughly 3.5 million will be going into that fund in the coming year. Then another increase was just additional monies going into the capital project fund from vehicle disposal fund so that they can build their facility. We did have a decrease in debt service. We were able to refinance some bonds. And then we had some uncontrollable increases in like electricity and insurance and things like that. So that kind of makes up our total changes of 4.8 million or 0.8%. So basically the budget has remained relatively unchanged from fiscal year 20. There's been really minor increases from FY 20 to 21 and then to 22. So our revenue sources, our primary source for the general fund is our real property taxes in addition to the public service company taxes. I'm going to talk about TAT on the next slide, which is definitely down. That's the transient accommodation tax. We do utilize fund balance from the previous year in our coming year budgets, really returning to the taxpayers what's rightfully theirs. We include as many federal and state grants as we know about at the time we're preparing the budget. And then we also have licensing and permits. So things like vehicle registration, building permit fees, driver's license fees. So all those types of things also go into the budget. So the transient accommodation tax, as the mayor mentioned, we usually get 19 million a year. And we have to look at the statewide collections. So if the state altogether collects 200 million or more in fiscal year 22, then we would get our entire $19 million. If they get at least 97 million, then we will hopefully get some TAT in the coming year. However, just as an example, for the first 6 months of this fiscal year, from July 1st, 2020 to December 31st, 2020, the state has only collected a total of 37.4 million, obviously because of the reduction in tourism due to COVID. So that's kind of hard to project for the coming year. We do know that especially over spring break and recent arrivals have been up definitely, but we're waiting to see what the trend's going to continue. So right now in the current fiscal year, we were told that we wouldn't be receiving anything and we have budgeted zero. And we don't believe they will hit the 97 million in the current year. And then we're projecting zero in fiscal year 22 as well. But we'll continue to monitor that as we get a few more months of data as we work on the FY22 projections. To kind of counteract this reduction in tourism, the governor allowed us not to pay our other post-employment benefits, the actuarial portion. So we did forgo that, and there is a bill in the legislature pending that we would not have to pay that for next year either. So that was one of the ways we were able to compensate for the reduction in TAT revenue. So in addition to our property taxes and everything in the general fund, we do get fuel tax, public utility franchise tax, and vehicle weight tax. Those are the primary funding sources for the highway fund. Fuel tax is down, definitely less people are commuting to work on the west side from the east side. We have fewer tourists. So for various reasons, fuel tax fuel consumption is down, meaning fuel tax revenue is down. And then public utility franchise tax is based on the revenues of Helco and the gas company, and their revenues are also down as well. So we've definitely seen declines in revenue, both for FY21, and we're expecting the same declines in FY22. We hope for some recovery, but we're not that optimistic yet. General excise tax fund, the main source of revenue is the general excise tax surcharge, or the 0.5%. There, we projected a 25% decrease for FY21, and we're expecting the same thing for FY22. And based on current collections, that's pretty consistent with what's coming in. We did rebound a little bit in the month of December. There were really good sales in December, so revenues were up. But so far, our projections have kind of carried through, and it's about 25% decrease from previous years. The sewer fund does get sewer charges, and some of our smaller funds also have revenue, and solid waste fund. One of their primary sources of revenue is the tipping fees, which are also down due to less waste from the hotels and tourists. Housing fund is primarily grants, and then golf course fund has green fees as well. So if you compare the county budget, when the mayor said it's bare bones, he's not kidding. I mean, we really just budget what we have to have. So if you compare our current year budget to the other counties, I wasn't able to get data for all the counties for FY22, but looking at FY21 and comparing it by population, you'll see that per capita, we have the lowest of all the counties, even City and County of Honolulu, which does have economy of scales. So we have the lowest. If you look at it per square mile, our island is by far the largest, which gives us challenges in having police and fire protection island-wide. Even when you look at it per square mile, again, even though we're the big island, we're by far the lowest per square mile. So just some interesting information to see how we compare to the others. So the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 is out there. We are expecting between 36 and 39 million. I think it's going to be closer to 39 million when all is said and done. And that's something we're going to receive over a 2-year period. So we expect to receive half of it in the next 60 days. And then the other half, 12 months or more after we receive the first payment. So we're waiting for additional information from the US Department of Treasury to know when we're actually going to receive that. The funds will be used to respond to the COVID-19 public health emergency, like the mayor mentioned, doing testing at the airport, basically keeping our entire community safe. So whether that's, buying disinfectant or hand sanitizer or PPE for our employees and others, it's really going to go towards keeping everyone safe. One of the challenges with how we're going to be able to use the money is how the state is going to utilize their funds. Some of the additional programs that the American Rescue Plan is funding is federal unemployment assistance, which will go directly to the state and they'll use that. But there's also rent and mortgage relief. We do believe they're going to pass down part of that to the county, but we're not sure how much yet. There's small business and nonprofit funding as well. It's 60 billion nationwide. That wasn't a specific amount that was allocated to each state. There's money for vaccinations and testing, much of which we're helping with and doing a lot of the testing, especially the community testing. So that 55.3 million, it's not clear yet if the state is going to allocate part of that to each of the counties or not. And in all fairness to the state, they're also waiting for the from the US Department of Treasury. There's 150 million for healthcare. There's some for nursing homes, 634 million for education. So this for the schools. There's another 138 million for childcare and welfare programs and 380 million for transportation. All said and done, I believe it's 6.1 billion coming to the state of Hawaii through the American Rescue Plan. So we are looking forward to getting that, but we're also looking forward to more guidance. If the state, for example, shares part of their vaccination and testing money with us, then we won't need to utilize our portion of the American Rescue Plan for that. And we'll have it for additional programs and funding, much like what we did for the CARES Act. So that's all I had on this part of it, but happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, and before you go on, Deanna, the mayors were talking to the governor last week, and they're still not sure how that money is going to be spent, but they're expecting, I think, the counties to join in with them on things like the testing. And what we don't know is if we're joining in, are they sharing some of their pot of money or are they going to go to ours? And my guess is that they're going to ask us to go to our pot of money.
That's kind of how it was for CARES Act, but that was also a much larger distribution as well.
And for some reason, they don't want to help pay for anything at the airport. So.
Thank you, Deanna and Mayor. Deanna, a couple of questions that came to mind during your presentation. The breakout that you did for us on the funding and so forth, where does homelessness fit into this? And perhaps this is something that Susan wants to weigh in as well.
So homelessness used to be in the mayor's office under the previous administration, but it's now back in the Department of Housing. So all of that funding, including grants that they receive, are flowing through the Department of Housing. So Susan can address that if you have specific questions.
Great. So why don't we talk about some general things? Mayor and Deanna, you spoke about the amounts of money that we can expect from American Rescue Plan. And perhaps you could give us some of your budget highlights with respect to capital improvement projects specific to West Hawaii. I know that you have some of those there.
So, there's a lot of priorities. Roads are a big thing. And I know we have Ikaika here and he may want to jump in just a few seconds. We were talking about this today. We're looking at the Anike and Ali'i bypass. Those are some things that we're really interested in. I believe both of those, and Ikaika, correct me if I'm wrong, are right now going through the archaeological assessments. And so those are some things. A big one is going to be our wastewater treatment facility. Ramsey has some plans there, but there's a lot of things that are coming into play. The most immediate is actually not in Kona, although we have a plan. Ramsey has a plan for that. The most immediate is really coming due in Ka'u, where we have the EPA breathing down our backs to do some things, and so we're looking at that. We talked a little bit about solid waste. Solid waste is going to be a real challenge for us. We're a couple of $1 million in the hole this year. So those are some of the highlights. Deanna, you want to add some of the other ones that we're talking about? I know also Waikoloa, we're looking at roads over there.
So the council last fall, I think it was summer or fall, did pass a bond ordinance specifically to address some of the road needs. Waikoloa intersection was definitely one of them, and I think there are a couple others as well. In addition, we had our CIP, our capital improvement project meeting this morning, and all the departments are getting ready for stimulus money, whether it's from the federal government, the state, or if we have to create our own, by having projects shovel ready to go. And so several of them have projects already shovel ready, but we want them to get those lined up as much as possible. About 10 or 12 years ago, when we had the American Recovery Act and ARRA funding, we were really able to get more than our fair share of the state funding. And that's how, Anike Ho'okalole got built originally, was with those funds. And we were ready to go with that. So we want to be ready to go with these so that we can get as much funding as possible again.
Great, thank you. And Ikaika, did you have anything to add as far as CIP goes? I know that you've been really busy and
yeah, thank you. I really appreciate this opportunity to present this to the public. And as the mayor said, we have a lot of CIP projects dealing with roadways and a lot of different balancing between Kona and Hilo side, as well as the other various districts of the Big Island. As we stated, Anike Ho'okalole extension, we're working on the archaeological study on that one. Waikoloa intersection was brought up. We're working on the design for that. We also have Waianoenue Avenue currently being reviewed for federal funds at this moment. And there's other active projects we currently have going on: Henry Street, Kilauea Avenue, Kananaole, Ali'i Drive Culvert. So we're actively pursuing what we can with federal funds, as well as getting our projects ready and eligible for those federal funds, and making sure we don't miss anything along the way. If there's anything in particular you'd like me to cover, I'm more than happy to discuss at this time.
so Ikaika, I know that during the pandemic, we've all learned the importance of broadband as critical infrastructure. And I know that Doug Adams will probably be able to weigh in on this as well. But what is DPW's role with respect to the extension of broadband or the expansion of broadband and digital equity?
So we've been in discussions with State DOT about their broadband initiative and connectivity, and how we work into that system, and what we can do to kind of piggyback off of that. So at this time, we don't have much details because we're waiting on more details from the state and how we can better access that. But right now, we are working on making sure we're in the loop on that and getting ready for whatever is necessary to tap into that, because that's something that's important to everybody. As we know, even accessing this right now, we're using our broadband connectivity, and it's very vital to our community. I'm sure Doug has more on the broadband stuff.
Doug, do you want to weigh in?
Sure, thank you, Ikaika. Jackie, you know as well as anyone, frankly, because you've been a part of the statewide broadband HUI from the beginning, that the work that HUI has done to continue to raise the notoriety of broadband and the importance of that, particularly during this pandemic, has just been incredibly important. The funding that we're seeing coming through the December federal funding, at the end of December, the CARES 2 or whatever it's called, saw that there was some actual infrastructure funding associated with that. The initial CARES funding did not provide us with really any infrastructure funding. It was really just to make sure that folks could pay, in particular, if they were eligible, could pay their broadband bills if they had access. But there's a lot of places that don't have access on this island. And so with DPW and with the State Department of Transportation taking the lead, there is an opportunity to use some of the funding that's being provided to make sure that we at least provide a broadband backbone along some of our state highways in Puna and in Ka'u, if we're able to make those things go. It'll be the last mile work that we'll have to continue to work on, but at least having the backbone in those areas will be a step forward and that we haven't had, didn't expect to have necessarily moving forward. And then finally, as Ikaika is aware, the infrastructure bill and the fact that we have Representative Kiheli on the Transportation Infrastructure Committee in the House, we only see those as good things for us moving forward to make sure that we have access in this very vital area.
Great, thank you. And Susan, I know that with housing, broadband, and inclusion of broadband in our low-income and affordable housing programs is important. But what can you share with us on Kukui'ula and the relocation of the micro shelters at the old airport park?
Hi, Jackie. Hi, everyone. Yes, I would love to share with you some updates on those two projects. Kukui'ula is a 6.4 acre project that's located off of Kealakahe Highway across from the West Hawaii Civic Center. So it is a phased project with 4 phases, and we're currently working on the first phase. I am hoping to have the notice to proceed to do construction at that project by the end of April. The first phase includes 16 emergency shelters, an assessment center. It's a 24/7 assessment center, a community center. We're going to have a security hut there, about 50 parking stalls, which I'm also hoping to be able to coordinate some safe parking activities there in the evening. There is a roadway that's part of this first phase that's going from Kealakahe Highway all the way to the back of the 6 acres. It's part of the first phase. So it is a $10 million phase. We have about $5 million, $6 million already secured. And I am hoping to utilize some CIP funds in this budget, the current budget, to finish out that first phase. So once we get started, the notice to proceed in April, the contractor is anticipating about 6 to 8 months to finish construction. So I'm looking to finish out this project by the end of this year. With regards to Kalamaku, the emergency shelters down at the old airport road, you know, the agreement was to set up that emergency facility to help out with the pandemic, right? And that once Kukui'ula was built, it would replace that. So we actually have a service provider providing services on site through, I think it's August, but we've been in contact with them. They will be able to extend services through the end of the year so that we can coordinate that transition. But that's the timing of those projects.
Great, thank you very much. And Susan, with all of that in mind, will APR funds be able to help you with respect to responding to homelessness for some of the others, such as you mentioned safe parking, and I'm not sure everyone on the call knows what safe parking is referring to, but also wondering if any of the American Rescue Program funds will help you with homelessness.
Yes, we've definitely been having a lot of conversation with the state, but like Deanna indicated, there's not a whole lot of detailed information coming down the pipeline yet. Deanna did point out some of those funds that I think will help homelessness. There's a rent and mortgage relief part of that fund, about $226 million. There is a allocation of about $18 million from the Home Investment Partnership Program, which is a grant that I do administer through the Office of Housing. It is still not known what portions of those funds will be divvied up between the counties. So we are going to be working with the state on that. That will definitely be helping us to do some affordable housing development. Homeowner assistance programs, which is the mortgage program, about $50 million there. You know, Deanna mentioned some of the healthcare funds, which I'm hoping will come to help us do some of these street medicine programs. $50 million is going to the community health centers and $40 million to the rural health centers. I'm seeing about $15 million for mental health programs, which would definitely help our homeless population, and about $6 million for electricity and water utility payments. So there's quite a bit of funding there that can help us with this population for sure, or help keep us from having more homeless, right?
Right. Well, thank you very much. And, you know, I hope that everyone on the call is noticing how creative you all are being with hobbling these funds together and maximizing and leveraging them to the best extent possible. So, Ramsey, what do you see as critical infrastructure for West Hawaii? And I think we're particularly concerned, I've got a question about cesspool conversions.
Definitely. Hi, Jackie. How are you? Good. Yeah, I think the major infrastructure that we lack in is the sewer collection system. We need to find a way that we can expand the sewer collection system so we can reach more homes, more businesses within the west side. Because we have a waste treatment plant facility. It's designed for, you know, more than 5 million gallons per day, but we only utilizing it at 1.9 million per day. So it's at 1/3 capacity as we speak. So we need to expand the sewer collection system somehow. We need to work with the developers. We need to work with anybody that coming and doing a project and figure out how we could construct the sewer pipeline within the roadway. It is very expensive. It's averaging about $1,000 to $1,500 per foot to construct a sewer line, the sewer infrastructure. So now we're thinking about, you know, what other ways we could put the sewer line. So there's the possibility of maybe doing it above ground and camouflage it with architecture design. So at least we don't have to put the expense and digging the roadway out. So we're laying out different ideas and trying to make it affordable. But definitely that's one of the biggest challenges that we have on the west side is how we could expand the sewer infrastructure to get these people out of the cesspools into the sewer treatment system.
Thank you very much.
Jackie, if I can just jump in and just ask this question to Ramsey. If we were to fix all of the infrastructure that we need to fix in wastewater, and we'll just go with wastewater for the island, what would your figure be for the whole island?
We technically looking at $1 billion. That's minimum, just to get us all the infrastructure, the current infrastructure up to date and running, and to get us to some of the water recyclable R1 water. But definitely the current situation based on countywide island, our infrastructure from waste treatment plant to sewer collection system, it's pretty old. It has not been maintained, and it need major overall.
Thanks. I just wanted to give that figure so people understand that we have some big challenges when just one department has one thing that they're looking at, which is like twice the amount of our total budget for the whole year. So we got some big challenges that we're looking at. and we are getting creative. Thanks, Ramsey.
Well, thank
Thank
you. In addition to that, Jackie, the whole idea about the funding also, we need to be creative because we need to start creating resource revenues. Without revenues become stagnant budget. So we have to start bringing more revenues in to make our debt ratio more healthier and also create economic growth.
Thank you very much, Ramsey. And Mayor, thank you. That's a big number that I think all of us will now have a better idea of how difficult it is to wrap ourselves around it and why the county is challenged in wrapping yourself around it.
Especially in a year where we're financially challenged already.
Right. Right. Maurice, if I could switch over to you for a minute and ask you what your thoughts are related to facilities post-pandemic. You have been really challenged as we've all been home and wanting to utilize facilities and challenged with trying to do all the safety issues at the same time. So really interested in what you guys have to say.
Yes, and thank you. I'm at my house, and so no mind the Koki frogs behind me. Yeah, so what we're trying to do is we've got our safety plans in place. We met with our recreation directors last week to discuss our open and phase plans. Right now, we're going to be looking at opening up 3 of our open air gyms, which are in Panaeva, Pahoa, and Waimea. This coming week, we plan on putting out a press release after we speak with the mayor's office about what our schedules are and the activities that we can have in those facilities. And we're going to give some preferential treatment to our senior citizens in these facilities because right now we have none of our senior programs going at this time. These 3 facilities are especially different because they're not enclosed. We have fences around these facilities, which allows open air. And so the transmission of disease is a lot less prevalent. And from there, we're going to move to, depending on what the pandemic presents to us, we'll move from there to hopefully around July, once the next fiscal year starts, to where we can start looking at opening up more of our senior programs and getting our seniors back into these classes. The few things that we're still having impediments with are the contact sports, and we're working with each individual organization that contacts us and figuring out those programs. But right now we are going slow and steady, just like a big ship in the water. And as the pandemic gives us the opportunity and our response gives us the opportunity to work with the administration, and we will get those going as soon as we can.
Great. And Maurice, can some of those federal funds that were expected be used to retrofit and update some of the aging facilities we have to meet COVID safety guidelines? I always admire Parks and Rec for the work that you all do with facilities that I know personally in many cases are World War II era facilities. So I'm really interested in knowing if some of the federal funds can be used to update.
Yes, ma'am. We do have a lot of aging facilities, especially when you look along the Hamakua coast. We're in discussions right now with the finance department and with the administration, and we're presenting plans to them on what we think that what we need, and we'll work together to figure out what's the best way to address those facilities if those funds become available to us.
Great, thank you so much, Maurice. Zendo Kern, we've been hearing a lot about EnerGov and how that will help streamline planning and permitting. Can you comment on this new program and when you're expecting it to start and what we can expect from it?
Aloha, Jackie. Aloha, everybody. Absolutely, yeah. So Intergov is a joint effort with DPW as well. So we have been coming in here and kind of unpacking where Intergov has been at this time. And we're excited to say that we have burned the ships at the shore, and we have a go live date of July 26th. So we are going to do our very best to get it into the best shape it possibly can be to move forward. And we're going to be committed to using it, and the staff is going to be using it as well. So right now we're doing a lot of end-to-end testing, process narratives, going through the entire process, same with DPW, seeing where there's any issues, bugs, and trying to work those out to the best of our ability. For planning specifically, we're going to have a phase 1 and phase 2 approach. Phase 1 is to get it up and running by go live, so the public can be basically submitting applications through the online portal. We'll be processing those and tracking those on the back end that way, but we'll still be using a lot of our traditional methods on the back end. Public won't see it as much. But as we move forward into phase 2, it's really working on building out the robust permitting system, so we can have a consistency in documentation, consistency in forms even, as well as utilizing technology for what it's good for. One click and we could be shooting out the request for agency comments to all the agencies, no longer requiring 20 copies of an application, hundreds, thousands of pages at times, hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars in printing. So we're really excited about it. One of the challenges that we're seeing is just it's a bandwidth issue. And so what we're doing is we're basically working with our staff to understand what the impacts are going to be. And currently, I have dedicated staff members from each of the divisions that are exclusively working on Intergov. So for example, my Planning Commission division, which handles like rezones and special permits and SMA permits, we're at about 60% capacity. We're short one staff, and we have one person working exclusively on Intergov. We're making it all work. It's kind of the theme, doing more with less, but really committed to making it work. I have to say it's been great working with the team. Working with the KICA folks has been awesome. Department of Information Technology has been great. Deanna has been awesome and very supportive, and generally the whole administration has been very supportive. I will say one of the things that we're working on is going to be our communication, our outreach to the public, because it's going to be different. It's going to be a different process. It's going to be a different experience. And at the beginning, it's going to be a change. It's going to be different. And it's also going to be different for our staff and for the team on the back end. So what we're hoping for is just a really good messaging, really good dialogue, and kind of the kokua and some patience as we go through this. And I think that's something that from our departments, both DPW and planning, as well as the mayor's office, is really committed to doing. And we'll be starting pretty soon on that to get ahead of the game. And so everybody does understand what's coming forward. In the meantime, just something I think you folks might be interested in West Hawaii. I'm in West Hawaii minimally 1 day a week, generally every Thursday. And I've been working hard with the West Hawaii division, just refining things and refining processes. And when the mayor took office and I took the position, West Hawaii had 185 building permits in the queue, about 3+ months of work to do. And as of today, I'm proud to say that we have 75 building permits in the queue, 30 of those being new this last week. And we are 1 month basically not behind, but 1 month of processing. So we've increased the system and the processing dramatically while working on all the rest of the stuff that we're working on. And Intergov, did I mention Intergov?
That's fantastic, Zendo, and we're certainly going to make sure that we share that news with our community. One of the things that we really look forward to, and why we think these forums are so important, is to make sure that the narratives that are being circulated in our community and the information that's being circulated is up to date, is true and factual, based on data. And if we need more information, we love that we're able to come back to you.
Jackie,
Yes.
if I can jump in before you go too much further, one of the things on messaging that people have to understand is InterGov will save a lot of time, but in the very front end of launching it, there's going to be a learning curve, and it will probably slow things down for a couple of months. And so we really want the community to understand there will be a slowdown, but there's a reason for that slowdown, so we can speed up. So we're slowing down to speed up, and we're learning. The other thing I'll just share with you, one of the things that we've done is we asked Zendo. They have these department head memos that were probably about a foot tall, and they were sitting around since many administrations back. We've asked Zendo, and Zendo has now rescinded all of those other memos that were there from the department heads before, the planning directors before, and we're going by what's in the law and what's in the code. So what that does is allows people to have certainty about what the law is, not having some secret documents in the back that the department's going to be looking at. So I think that will also change a little bit the way the staff is working, and I think it has, but I think that will also speed things up, because people will know with certainty what the rules are, rather than having these rules that aren't published anywhere and come out in these memos.
That's fantastic. And I think anything we can do to help you get the message out about what we can expect so that we can manage our own expectations is fantastic. And I like the comment you made about efficiency and learning curve. In early 2020, when we first started into the pandemic, I remember getting a lot of phone calls because not everyone was used to using virtual platforms. And I think I might have shared with you that some of those early Zoom calls, it almost felt like you were on a seance, because you were like, can you see me? Can you hear me? And now, we're very used to this. So it'll be a learning curve, but we'll all get there together.
Jackie, one more that I'm sorry to.
No, go ahead.
Before you ask, one of the things that we've been doing, and Zendo talked about speeding up that process for the permitting. Ikaika has been doing, a lot of work, making sure that the building permits are moving quicker. One of the decisions that we made just recently, and I have to say this to make sure that these guys are hammering their guys, used to have a wet stamp. We've changed that. So if you have a stamp, or if you have electronic signature, they can move the plans forward rather than having things be rejected. So I know a lot of people were very frustrated. It was something that was brought up by also the Conakahala Chamber of Commerce Planning Committee. And it's, we've been listening to the public, and we've been making a lot of changes. Okay, I'll be quiet now.
No, this is all great information. One of the things that comes to mind is, even as we move into efficiencies and so forth, we still need bodies, of course. And I'm wondering how you all are dealing with vacancies and short staffs. I mean, everyone's trying to do more with less, but I really am curious about the vacancy situation and how you're addressing that.
So, I really love that guy, Les, and I'd love doing more with him. So, but we've asked each of the departments, and Lee Lorden is joined us, our managing director, and Deanna is here to talk maybe a little bit more about this. But we've asked them to really look at what they're filling, and it's, if we need to, we will fill. But if we can get by without, we've tried to do that as well. I mean, being able to balance our budget with what we had was not easy. And, I just want to say that I'm really thankful for the departments and for Lee and for Deanna for really looking really hard and close at filling those positions. Lee, did you want to add anything?
Yes, and thanks for having us, Jackie. And Mitch kind of hit it on the head there, but to focus it, we ask the directors, all of them, when they're filling positions or when they're buying equipment or making any expenses, we don't have any freezes right now, but we're asking them to be very cautious and very conscientious of what they're buying. And if something can be put on hold till later, that would be great. We currently have a balanced budget. We're currently finishing this current fiscal year budget, and we're going to be all right. But still, we're trying to be cautious because there's going to be some tough times ahead.
Great, thank you so much. So now I have that one question that we all dread. Are you all we've been watching what's happening in legislature, and we've all seen the headlines about the highest income brackets in this nation if they proceed with what some of their proposals were. Do you propose increasing taxes, whether it's property or additional GET surcharges or anything?
We, at this time, are not proposing tax increases. We've been able to do this, balance this budget. And my hat's off really to Deanna for doing some really amazing mathematical maneuvering. But at this point, we are not planning on raising taxes.
Thank you very much. And the art of arithmetic is really important. So thanks, Deanna, and to all of you, because obviously you have all been keeping your pencil sharpened. So if you don't mind, just a couple more minutes, could you share with us about your recent sustainability summit? And are there any highlights from the summit that help to inform or are reflected in the budget?
Well, let me just start off by saying the summit was pretty amazing for me. I did very little to set it up. I had an idea, and the idea that I had was probably something that was going to be at one of the hotels or at a Puni Center, because we had a zero budget to get this going, and it was going to be a very localized sustainability summit, and it became a world-class event with over 2,300 people who were registered online. I think the last thing I saw a couple of days ago, we had over 4,000 people who watched it on YouTube, not on YouTube, but on Naleo TV. It really, to me, the fact that we have that many people in our community wanting to voice their opinions on sustainability really was pretty amazing. And we're looking at projects. We had one today where they were talking about solar energy and making sure that that project that's been sitting around for a little while, that moves forward. We're looking at projects with our bus systems and maybe moving to hydrogen and electric buses. And we just had a great talk today with some people doing SPs, which are energy saving procurement contracts, and possibly doing some of our lighting. For me, the whole idea of sustainability is allowing our kids to raise their kids here and allowing their kids to raise their kids here. And in order for us to do that, a lot of things that we talked about tonight, making sure that we have quality jobs, making sure that people can have affordable housing, making sure that our permitting system isn't raising the costs in there. Some really great things for me. Another big takeaway was just hearing our community's voices. And that really is a direction, will be a direction as we move forward. I'm going to be quiet because I know Doug's just itching to say stuff. R&D did an amazing job in helping out with this, and Doug did a lot of listening sessions out there. So Doug, do you want to add anything that I'm missing?
Sure, Mayor. I always like to add things that you're missing. First of all, before we go to that, just briefly, I really want to thank Jane and you, Jackie, and your team for putting this community forum on. Really a terrific opportunity to talk to West Hawaii through your forum, which is terrific. Second, I would be remiss, and I think we all agree that Bobby Command has just been an incredible, made an incredible contribution to the administration and the team, and he knows everybody on the West Side. And if he doesn't know them, that's because they don't live there. So it's been awesome to actually have the opportunity. And part of what the administration's doing is making sure that the directors know we're over there quite a bit, actually 1 or 2 times a week, depending on what's going on. And also the administration has been both in the north and the south part of the island as well. We're not sitting in Hilo. We're making things, making sure that we're around. And we all recognize that just sitting in those, just showing up doesn't necessarily mean things are getting done. But when things do get done, part of it's attributed to the fact that we were showing up. I think Ramsey can talk to that especially. As far as the Sustainability Summit, I don't normally say that the mayor is a little modest, but in this particular case, he is. This event doesn't occur unless he's pushing it. He's pushing it back in the summer. And he had this idea about doing something along these lines back before he even declared. He put together a team, and that team did a lot of good work. And then we decided we're not going to use all the solutions they came up with. We're going to ask the people of the island and other folks, what about what they think? And so that whole process was put in place and really set up by Mayor Mitch Roth. And we were just really following his lead on where that's going. And we're continuing to do that. The decisions on where we're going to go and what we're going to focus on will be his decisions with, our input. But really, I would say that there was one event, I was a little surprised, actually, he hasn't mentioned it. And that would have been the last breakout of the summit. The opportunity for our mayor to sit in a breakout session with the governor of Guam, with the main trustee of the Marshallese, the Marianas Trust, the Prime Minister of Curacao, the Executive Director of the United Nations Foundation. Our MC was from New Zealand. I mean, talk about a connection across Oceania, island nations, and talking to the mayor of the Big Island. The Island Fly can serve as a model. We recognize that there are things that we're doing along with the other counties in the state that are going to be important as we move forward to make sure that we have a sustainable place to live, that we have a sustainable place to work, and that the folks that come here are coming here because it's not just for, dare I say, sand and Mai Tais. It's because there's places here, there are things here for them to learn, for them to contribute, and that's all part of what the sustainability is going to be about. So thank you very much for allowing me to make those comments. We have a lot of work still to do. We met as a team today to continue that work, and we look forward to working with everybody on the island to continue that.
And I'll just say that there's a couple of things. There's a couple of things that we're also looking at. Some of the, the big pie in the sky things that, people say are big pie in the sky things. John DeFries talked about a World Sustainability Center. And, we have started working with private donors. And, we're looking at Kona for that to happen. The other thing that the Sustainability Summit did for our island is it positioned us for big events. And so I understand there was a conversation with John Kerry, who's Biden's climate change person, about a major summit being held on the Big Island, maybe in 2022, that, will bring thousands of people here. But, putting Hawaii really on the map as far as sustainability, not just on a national map, but a world map. And so a lot of great things that have happened. And, I believe to speak it into life. And so those things will happen. So
Great,
thanks,
thank
Jackie.
you. No, thank you. And, I just wanted to say, I hope that everyone who's listening in on this recognizes the opportunities for more private public sector partnerships and collaborations. And I've had the privilege of working with most of you, and I know that all of you are open to exploring those opportunities. And, if we can maximize the assets that we have here on Hawaii Island and continue to look at things through the lens of assets, which I think the county has done phenomenally with the budget you've prepared, looking at the assets we have and not really focusing on the deficits, making the best use of the assets has been wonderful. Is there anything else any of you would like to add? We want to be mindful of your schedules as well as our audience. So if there's anyone who has any comments.
So Jackie, I echo what Doug says. I want to thank you and Jane for putting this on and giving us this opportunity to, talk to the West Side community and, really the whole island community, and tell people what we're doing, because we really don't get that opportunity very often. So thank you so much.
Thank you, and be careful what you all wish for, because we're already thinking about future forums. So thank you so much, everyone. We appreciate your time, your work, and again, we want to be open to anything that we can do to help with.
Thank
Right.
you, Mayor, and thank you to all of you cabinet members for participating in tonight's forum. And of course, Jackie, thank you so much for being such a fantastic moderator for us today. And to all of our viewers watching us right now on YouTube, we will put the link to this entire forum on our website at westhawaiiforum.org and on our webpage, Facebook page, West Hawaii Forum. And for all of the cabinet members, if you want to share any information to the community, we are very much open to holding a forum for you. Use us as your resource. And again, thank you very much for your time. And until next time, we'll see you guys. Please be safe and good evening.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Aloha.